It's the Morning Update Friday in Portland. Good morning, Paul Lindman and Scott Lynn. This next sounds like the plot of a bad movie or TV drama. A Texas woman, wealthy, avoids being killed by a hitman 3 times in 3 months, but it's real life. Chris Cuomo brings us the story tonight on 2020. Chris, of course, the ABC correspondent, 2020 anchor, joins us for a preview this morning. Tell us more about Yvonne Stern, if you would, Chris. Good morning to you.
Good morning, fellas. Happy Easter, happy Passover, whatever applies to you. Yvonne Stern is a very special woman. She's taken a lot of heat for doing something that, especially during this time of year, should be applauded. She has sought one of the highest forms of forgiveness I've ever been around. She didn't know what was going on. A gunshot came into her house, Tony suburb, things like that don't happen. And then a guy jumps in front of her door a couple of months later and shoots at her, hits her right between the feet, just barely missing her body. And then her whole family goes into a panic. They don't know what's going on. They're trying to figure it out. The police are trying to help. She's in a parking lot. A man walks up, shoots her right in the stomach. She winds up finding out, fellas, that this was all planned, and it's like the gang that couldn't shoot straight times 10 by a woman. The police have to tell her the woman is your husband's lover. The police then tell her, and we think your husband's in on it.
How does forgiveness play into this, Chris?
Because, the marriage breaks up, right? Surprise, surprise. But then, during the process of that, she goes to therapy. She thinks about it. Very devout Christian. Thinks about the affair, what her vows were about. Takes her husband back. He obviously makes big entreaties for her affections and promises and apologies, and she refuses to believe he had something to do with the death. And that's why nobody's going to follow the murder plot. That's why nobody's going to follow this trial more closely than Yvonne Stern.
You say that she's taking heat. Have her friends stood beside her, or do they think she's making a big mistake here?
Well, look, we all know how divorce goes, right? In the beginning, everybody takes sides. Everybody tries to motivate whomever they're closest to. But this was a hard thing for people to understand, because if you have an affair, it's probably 50-50 whether your marriage is going to break up, right? You find out that the person that you had an affair with tries to kill the spouse. That's pretty much a deal breaker, right? I mean, it sounds silly to say, but you'd think it would be over. So for Yvonne to do this, a lot of people mistook forgiveness for ignorance, for her being a weak woman. And let me tell you something. I've interviewed a lot of people in my life, and I'm no spring chicken myself. Yvonne Stern is not a weak woman, and I believe listening to her rationale and her own process through this makes this a great story tonight in and of itself, even though it's one of the most interesting murder-for-hire plots I've ever heard of.
I know we haven't had the trial yet, Chris, but who do prosecutors think were hiring all these hitmen, her husband or the mistress?
Well, both. They know the mistress was doing it. The mistress has acknowledged that she did it. The mistress has a wild tale that we'll unpack for you tonight of why she did it. This whole master-servant thing, and that Jeff Stern, Yvonne's husband, was the mastermind who made her do it. And we'll explain how that worked tonight. Do I think they can make the case? Obviously, I'm going to cover the trial for ABC News. If you guys want me to report for you, I'm happy to do it. I will be surprised if they make the case, but we're going to have to wait and see.
Well, you point out, ain't none of us in this conversation spring chickens. The news never ceases to surprise us, does it? I mean, this is just incredible.
Fact is often stranger than fiction. And this one, I mean, you guys know me. I don't do the hard sell very often. This is an interesting tale tonight, and I like it because especially during this season of rebirth and renewal, why Yvonne found forgiveness, what she found in herself, what it says about human behavior, I think is really, really interesting.
I drive by a church reader board coming to work, Chris, and the sign recently said forgiveness isn't a one-time thing, it's a lifestyle. I guess that proves it. At least this woman does.
Well, people like me depend on that being true, so I hope it is.
Chris Cuomo with the whole story tonight, 2020 ABC Channel 2 in Portland. Chris, thanks much.
All right, take care, fellas.